Have you ever felt drawn to someone you thought you shouldn't want? That's what happened with my neighbor, William Carter. There was something about him, his quiet confidence, the way he carried himself, that pulled me in from the moment we met. His presence was like a warm fire, steady and impossible to ignore, but he kept his distance, convinced the years between us meant we could never be more than neighbors. Today, I'll share how one evening changed everything and how I showed him that age is just a number when it comes to real connection. This is a story of hearts colliding, defying expectations, and finding something true. Before I dive into this deeply personal tale, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support means everything and keeps these stories alive. I think you'll find this one resonates in a special way. Let me tell you what happened. I used to wonder if my preferences made me different, or maybe just honest. There's something about older men that draws me in, maybe their quiet confidence, or the way they fill a room with effortless presence. It's like they carry a lifetime of stories in every glance, every word. But I never expected to find all that in William, my neighbor, in our quiet Seattle suburb. I noticed him the day I moved in. While everyone else in the neighborhood was caught up in their own lives, he stopped by to introduce himself. His warm smile lit up the crisp Pacific Northwest air, and his deep voice wrapped around me like a cozy blanket. He was charming in a way that didn't try too hard, and that alone set him apart. It was like meeting someone who already knew how to make the world feel softer, safer. Our early exchanges were friendly but reserved. I could sense him holding back, keeping a careful distance despite his warmth. It was as if an invisible wall stood between us, built by his own doubts. That changed the day I needed his help. I was juggling grocery bags and an armful of packages when he appeared. "Here, let me take those," he said effortlessly, lifting the bags from my hands. His strength was quiet, steady, like an oak tree standing firm in a storm. I protested, insisting I could manage, but he smiled and said, "No trouble at all. Trust me." His voice was even almost commanding, and I felt my cheeks flush under his gaze. That look had held me captive, stirring something I hadn't felt in a long time. As we walked to my door, I couldn't help but notice the quiet power in his movements. He moved with purpose, each step deliberate, yet there was a gentleness that made my heart skip. But as quickly as he appeared, he left as if afraid to linger too long. It was like he was running from something he wanted, but didn't believe he could have. Weeks later, I found myself at his door out of necessity. I'd locked myself out of my apartment and was too flustered to think of anyone else to call. When he opened the door, he was dressed casually, a book in one hand. His silver hair caught the light, and his presence filled the doorway, warm and inviting. "Locked out, huh? Come in. I'll call someone for you," he said, stepping aside. His house smelled of coffee and cedar, the kind of scent that made me feel at home instantly. It was like stepping into a sanctuary where the world's chaos couldn't reach. He gestured to the couch, and I sat suddenly hyper-aware of his every movement. When he handed me a glass of water, his fingers brushed mine, sending a jolt through me. That brief touch was a spark igniting a warmth I couldn't ignore. I glanced up, and for a moment our eyes locked. There was something in his gaze, longing mixed with hesitation, like he was wrestling with his own feelings. It was a look that spoke volumes, a silent battle between desire and doubt. "Thanks," I said, trying to stay composed. "No trouble," he replied, his voice softer than usual. It was a whisper of vulnerability, a crack in his guarded exterior. He stepped back, running a hand through his silver hair, a gesture I'd come to recognize as a sign he was overthinking something. That small movement was endearing a glimpse into the man behind the confidence. That moment lingered in my mind, and a week later I decided to take a chance. I had a bottle of wine I didn't want to drink alone, and I convinced myself sharing it with him was a friendly gesture. Deep down, I knew it was more a step toward something I couldn't name. When he opened the door, his expression shifted from surprise to warmth, though I caught a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. His hesitation only made me want to prove him wrong to show him what I already felt. "Wine and company," he said, stepping aside to let me in. How could I say no, though I'm sure you have better options for a Friday night than spending it with someone my age? His self-deprecating words hung in the air, a challenge I was determined to answer. His comment lingered, but I chose to ignore it. We sat on his balcony, the Seattle city lights twinkling in the distance. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of pine and possibility. I poured us each a glass, trying to ignore the flutter in my stomach. Every sip felt like a step closer to something unspoken. "You're full of surprises," he said, raising his glass, looking at me with admiration and restraint. His gaze was a warm embrace, pulling me in despite his caution. The conversation started lightly, but as the wine flowed, so did our words. I opened up about my life, my fears, and unintentionally my attraction to men like him. It was a confession that slipped out raw and honest, like a secret I'd been carrying too long. "It's not about the years," I said, my voice softer now. "It's about how you carry them." Those words were my truth, a bridge I hoped he'd cross. His expression shifted, and I saw the internal struggle play out on his face. His eyes softened, revealing a vulnerability that made my heart ache. "I've seen the way you look at me," he admitted quietly. "But I told myself someone as vibrant and young as you could never—" His voice trailed off heavy with doubt, and it broke something open in me. I reached out, touching his hand. "Age is just a number. What matters is how we feel." My words were a plea, a promise, urging him to let go of his fears. He brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering, and I felt warmth spread to my cheeks. His touch was a spark igniting a fire I hadn't known was there. "You're beautiful," he said softly, his voice almost a whisper. "I've wanted to tell you that since the day you moved in, but I convinced myself I was too old, that you deserved someone younger." His confession was raw, a window into his heart, and it pulled me closer. The world seemed to collapse in that moment. I could feel the warmth of his hand on my cheek, his steady breath as he leaned closer. The air was charged like the moment before a storm breaks. My heart pounded, but I didn't pull away. Instead, I closed the distance, letting the moment take over. It was like stepping into a dream where nothing else mattered. His kiss was slow, cautious, and filled with an emotion I couldn't name. It was tender, yet powerful, a connection that made me feel cherished. There was no rush, no uncertainty, just a kiss that made me feel valued. His lips were a promise, a vow that this was real. His hand rested on my waist, steadying me as the world tilted on its axis. His touch was an anchor grounding me in a sea of emotion. When we finally parted, he looked into my eyes, surprise replacing the doubt that had been there before. His gaze was a mirror reflecting my own hope and desire. "I held back because I thought someone like you could never want someone like me," he confessed, his voice tinged with vulnerability. Those words were a gift, raw and honest, breaking down the last of his walls. I smiled, placing a hand on his cheek. "Age doesn't matter to me. What matters is how you make me feel." My voice was steady, a declaration of truth that felt like freedom. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about him, how he made me feel safe and desired at the same time. He was a haven, a place where I could be myself without fear. I'd always been drawn to men with more life experience, but with him, it wasn't just a preference, it was a connection, something real and undeniable. It was like finding a piece of myself I hadn't known was missing. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be, with someone who finally let go of his fears about our age gap and allowed himself to love fully. It was a moment of pure, unguarded connection, a spark that lit up my world. Have you ever let someone's age stop you from pursuing something real? Or maybe you were the one holding back, thinking you were too old or too young to love someone. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your stories about looking beyond the numbers to find something true. If you loved this story and want more tales of finding love in unexpected places, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin when we stop letting numbers define our hearts.